Hey there! Do you want to learn English in a fun and easy way? Stories can help you improve your vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening skills. And the best part? You'll learn without even realizing it. In today's lesson, we have an exciting story just for you. So sit back, relax, and listen carefully. Are you ready? Let's begin! The Story of the First Flight by the Wright Brothers. The story of the Wright brothers is more than just the history of the first flight. It is a lesson in curiosity, determination, and innovation. Wilbur and Orville Wright were not scientists or engineers, yet they accomplished something that many experts believed was impossible. From their journey, we learn that failure is not the end, but a step toward success. They made many mistakes, but each mistake taught them something new. Instead of giving up, they used their knowledge to improve their designs. We also learn the importance of observation and problem solving. By studying birds, they discovered how to control an aircraft. By experimenting with wind tunnels, they found the best wing shape for flight. They didn't just dream, they tested, learned, and improved. Most importantly, this story teaches us that anyone can achieve great things with persistence and creativity. The Wright brothers started as simple bicycle mechanics, but their passion for learning changed the world forever. As you read this story, think about how their journey relates to your own learning. Whether you are studying English or chasing a personal goal, keep trying, keep learning, and never stop believing in your potential. Chapter 1: A Childhood of Curiosity. Wilbur and Orville Wright grew up in a small house in Dayton, Ohio. They were not rich, but they had something more valuable: a home filled with books, ideas, and curiosity. Their father, Milton Wright, was a bishop who traveled often, bringing back interesting gifts for his children. One day, he brought home a small toy that would change everything: a simple flying machine called a helicopter. It was made of paper, bamboo, and rubber bands, designed to spin in the air like a tiny helicopter. The young brothers were fascinated. They played with it for hours, watching how it moved. When the toy finally broke, they didn't just throw it away. Instead, they tried to build their own, making it bigger and better. Even as children, they were already engineers, learning through trial and error. Wilbur, the older brother, was serious and thoughtful. Orville, younger and more playful, had a love for experimenting. Together, they were the perfect team. As they grew up, their interest in machines grew too. They built kites, made their own tools, and even started a printing business. But nothing excited them more than the idea of flight. At the time, most people believed flying was impossible. Many had tried, and all had failed. But Wilbur and Orville saw things differently. They didn't see failure. They saw a challenge, and one day, they would prove the world wrong. Chapter 2: The Bicycle Shop and a New Dream. As Wilbur and Orville grew older, their curiosity about machines only deepened. In the 1890s, bicycles were becoming more popular, and the Wright brothers saw an opportunity. They opened the Wright Cycle Company, where they repaired and built bicycles. Running a business taught them valuable skills: mechanical design, problem-solving, and perseverance. But more importantly, it gave them the funds to chase a much bigger dream: flight. At that time, some inventors were trying to build flying machines, but most designs were flawed. The brothers studied these failures carefully. They read everything they could find about aviation, including the works of Otto Lilienthal, a German pioneer in gliding. They realized that most people were focused on building powerful engines, but the real problem was control. How to keep an aircraft stable in the air. Wilbur was especially drawn to this challenge. He wrote letters to experts and even began sketching ideas for flying machines. If birds can balance themselves in the air, he reasoned, why can't we learn to do the same? By 1899, the brothers had made a decision. They would take everything they had learned from bicycles, balance, control, and aerodynamics, and apply it to a flying machine. It was a bold dream, but they were ready to take the first step. With no formal training, no investors, and no support from the scientific community, the Wright brothers set out on a journey that would change history. Their bicycle shop was no longer just a business. It was now the birthplace of the first airplane. Chapter 3: Lessons from Birds and Early Experiments. With a clear goal in mind, the Wright brothers began their experiments. They knew that flying was not just about building a powerful engine. It was about understanding how to control movement in the air. To solve this, they looked to nature. They spent hours watching birds, especially hawks and seagulls, studying how they adjusted their wings to turn, climb, and descend. Wilbur noticed that birds did not simply tilt their whole bodies to change direction. Instead, they twisted their wings, creating an effect that allowed them to stay balanced while turning. This gave the brothers a revolutionary idea: wing warping, a method to bend the edges of the wings to control movement. To test their theory, they built small kites and experimented with different wing shapes. Some designs failed, but each failure taught them something new. By 1900, they felt confident enough to build their first glider, a large, manned aircraft without an engine. But where could they test it? The brothers needed a place with strong winds and soft sand for safe landings. After careful research, they chose Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, a remote coastal town known for its steady winds and open space. With their glider packed, they left their bicycle shop behind and set off on an adventure that would bring them one step closer to powered flight. Their experiments had just begun, but one thing was certain: the Wright brothers were no longer just dreamers. They were now true aviation pioneers. Chapter 4: The Struggle Against Nature. When Wilbur and Orville arrived in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1900, they were full of excitement. But as soon as they began testing their first glider, they realized that flying was going to be much harder than they had expected. The first problem was the wind. Kitty Hawk was chosen because of its strong and steady breezes, but controlling the glider in such unpredictable conditions was a challenge. Sometimes the wind was too strong, making it difficult to launch the glider. Other times, it was too weak, preventing them from getting enough lift. The second problem was the glider itself. Their calculations, based on earlier aviation research, were wrong. The wings did not generate enough lift, and the glider could barely stay in the air. Even when they managed to get it off the ground, it was difficult to control. Many times, it crashed into the sand, forcing them to rebuild and improve their design. But the Wright brothers refused to give up. Instead of guessing, they decided to collect real data. They built a small wind tunnel, a device that allowed them to test different wing shapes in controlled conditions. Through careful experiments, they discovered the correct wing shape to generate lift efficiently. After months of trial and error, they returned to Kitty Hawk in 1901 and 1902 with improved gliders. This time, their designs worked much better. They learned how to control the glider by shifting their body weight and warping the wings. Finally, they had solved the biggest problem of flight: stability and control. Now, there was only one challenge left: adding an engine to make their machine fly on its own. The greatest test of their lives was about to begin. Chapter 5: The First Successful Flight. By 1903, the Wright brothers were ready for their biggest challenge yet: building a flying machine with an engine. No one had ever done this before, and there were no blueprints to follow. They had to design and build everything themselves, from the engine to the propellers. The first problem was finding the right engine. Most engines at the time were too heavy for flight. So, with the help of their mechanic, Charlie Taylor, the brothers built their own lightweight engine from scratch. It produced 12 horsepower, just enough to lift their aircraft into the air. Next, they designed the propellers. Many believed that airplane propellers should work like ship propellers, but the Wrights thought differently. After extensive testing, they created two long, thin propellers that acted like rotating wings, generating enough thrust to push the aircraft forward. They named their flying machine the Wright Flyer. With everything in place, they returned to Kitty Hawk for the most important test of their lives. On December 14, 1903, Wilbur attempted the first powered flight, but the plane stalled and crashed after a short distance. They repaired the damage and tried again 3 days later. On the cold morning of December 17, 1903, Orville climbed into the cockpit while Wilbur steadied the plane. At 10:35 a.m., the engine roared to life, and the Wright Flyer lifted off the ground. It flew for 12 seconds, covering 120 feet, a small distance, but a huge leap for mankind. They took turns flying that day, with Wilbur making the longest flight, 59 seconds and 852 feet. The Wright brothers had done the impossible. For the first time in history, a human-controlled powered airplane had flown successfully. The era of aviation had begun. Chapter 6: Proving the World Wrong. Even though the Wright brothers had achieved the first powered flight, the world was not ready to believe them. Newspapers ignored their success, and many experts dismissed their achievement as a hoax. How could two bicycle mechanics succeed when so many trained scientists had failed? Undeterred, the Wrights continued improving their aircraft. they built the Wright Flyer II in 1904 and tested it near their home in Dayton, Ohio. At first, progress was slow. The plane was unstable, and many flights ended in crashes. But the brothers remained patient, making small adjustments after each flight. By the end of 1904, they had achieved a major breakthrough. They could now fly in circles and stay in the air for several minutes. In 1905, they introduced the Wright Flyer III, which was far more stable and could be controlled with ease. On October 5, 1905, Wilbur flew for 39 minutes, covering 24 miles, 39 kilometers, without landing. This was no longer just an experiment. It was the birth of practical aviation. Still, the world remained skeptical. To prove their invention was real, the brothers decided to keep their technology secret while seeking patents and government contracts. By 1908, they were ready to demonstrate their flying machine in public. Wilbur traveled to France, where aviation was gaining popularity, while Orville stayed in the United States to showcase their aircraft for the U.S. military. When Wilbur performed his first public flight in Le Mans, France, the audience was amazed. Unlike previous attempts by other inventors, his plane took off smoothly, turned gracefully, and landed safely. The crowd erupted in applause. Suddenly, the Wright brothers were no longer unknown mechanics. They were international celebrities. The world had doubted them, but now there was no denying the truth. Human flight was real, and the Wright brothers had made it possible. Chapter 7: The Legacy of the Wright Brothers. With the world finally recognizing their achievement, the Wright brothers became pioneers in aviation. Governments, businesses, and inventors all wanted to learn from them. They began selling airplanes to the U.S. military and European countries, helping shape the future of warfare and transportation. But success brought challenges. Other inventors, inspired by the Wrights' success, started building their own airplanes. Legal battles over patents began as the brothers fought to protect their designs. While they won many cases, these disputes took a toll on them, especially Wilbur. In 1912, Wilbur Wright tragically passed away from typhoid fever at the age of 45. Orville, deeply affected by the loss of his brother, continued working in aviation for a few more years before retiring in 1915. He lived long enough to see how much the world had changed because of their invention. By the time Orville died in 1948, airplanes had become a normal part of life. People were flying across oceans, and aviation had transformed warfare, commerce, and travel. The small glider that once struggled to stay in the air had led to the creation of powerful jet engines and eventually space exploration. Today, every airplane in the sky is a testament to the Wright brothers' determination and vision. They were not scientists, not engineers, but two men with a dream and the courage to pursue it. Their story proves that great achievements come from passion, persistence, and the willingness to defy expectations.